Tonight on Joy News Prime, Majority Leader fires back at Speaker of Parliament over threat to block approval of the 2021 budget, but adds the disagreement can be resolved.
The Speaker would not have, if I have to be blunt, he wouldn't have the authority to do that.
Parliamentarians have meanwhile roundly condemned the controversial textbooks that have sparked outrage among sections of the public, with some insisting the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment cannot be absolved.
I want to say that we should go ahead and condemn it in no uncertain terms. Stereotyping of ethnic groups, even in jest, must stop.
Government says public sector workers should not expect any significant increase in wages for the next 3 years, citing the dire economic situation the country is faced with.
Services, capital, social intervention programs, that portion alone is not even enough to pay for wages and salaries. In fact, if you pay for wages and salaries, that portion, you are left with about 40% in the whole.
We'll get a reaction from Labour. Also in the bulletin, retired Auditor General snubs directive to submit comprehensive handing over notes in latest spat with board chair. In his reply to a letter demanding the notes, Daniel Yao Domovo had described the directive as preposterous. In business, government reaffirms commitment to complete Saglemi housing project as soon as possible.
Like I said, I'm committed to putting the past behind us and charting a new way forward.
And a 9-year-old has been killed in a fire allegedly started by his stepfather. My name is Israelai, and Joy News Prime is coming to you live from our fan of our studios at Kokomimli here in Accra on your digital terrestrial TV, because we're free to air, and also on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. This is a home of independent, fearless, credible, and impactful journalism. Stay tuned in. Majority Leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osechi Sabunsu, says the Speaker of Parliament has no power to block approval of the 2021 budget over cuts in the estimate for the legislature and judiciary. Anumabu had vowed to resist any attempt by the presidency to slash the funding amount requested by the two arms of government, and warned the committees considering the estimate against approving the slashed budget, adding he will not forward the appropriation bill to the president for his assent. This was the Speaker addressing the House on Tuesday.
The budget is not for the executive. We have the final power to approve or disapprove. And so what the Constitution has done is for them to make recommendations and to negotiate during the deliberations of the budget before the House. It is not for the executive to impose ceilings on the judiciary or parliament. We have to do the proper thing. And so during the consideration of the estimates, honorable members, particularly the committees concerned, take that on board. At the end of the day, come and inform us as to the negotiated figure, not the ceiling that has been given by the president. That is not the intendment of the 1992 Constitution. If you do otherwise, I, as your Speaker, will not append any letter for submission to the President for his assent. I mean what I say. The weakest link in our democracy is Parliament. And because of that, we are not able to control things like corruption. We are not able to hold the executive to account. We are not able to get the rule of law going. We are the arm to leave that. And so far as I remember the Speaker of this House, I will insist that the right thing be done.
Speaking exclusively with Joy News' Kwesi Parker-Wilson, Chairman Sabonsu said the matter could have been better handled by the Speaker.
Well, the Speaker would not have, if I have to be blunt, he wouldn't have the authority to do that. But I'm saying that if there is a misunderstanding, we can resolve it without escalating the misunderstanding.
So for now, you're sure that approval will go through?
I'm sure. And we just need to have further discussion on this. The Speaker meant well for Parliament. I would maybe disagree with how he communicated, but I want to believe that he means well for us to grow Parliament together. I think he related to two things. One, he said, had to do with the communication that the Secretary to the President had written, not, as it were, at the instance of the President. He said he himself has signed the letter.
Yeah, he signed it, yeah.
Yes, but that has been the practice. The Secretary, because he's not a deputy to the President, cannot sign for the President, right? I mean, technically, he can't do that. Maybe he would say that I'm directed by the President to do this. Perhaps that was not the opening construct, and because of that, the Speaker is saying that, well, he seemed to have written it in his own name. If that was the case, that would be inappropriate.
Well, we're saying in Parliament where there's been widespread condemnation by parliamentarians of some controversial textbooks in circulation which have caused outrage among sections of the public. Speaking to the issue on the floor of Parliament, MP for North Tonk Samuel Kujoto Ablakwa argued NACA must be held liable, explaining the textbooks have been in circulation since September last year. He cited a letter from the regulatory agency giving first stage approval of the textbooks. He says give the publisher some confidence to go ahead to distribute them.
What is also worrying, at page 38 of this book, and I won't read it to follow your guidance, is that it portrays a certain mindset. It says that and this is a textbook for class 3 pupils, and it's teaching them about intermarriages, that if you marry from another race, your children will be exotic. You have an exotic partner, and you produce beautiful exotic children, and you stand a chance of becoming a member of that race that you have married into. And that is benefit of intermarriage. I mean, Mr. Speaker, the content of this, it's only going to cause mass brain damage for our children. It's poisoning them. This is total miseducation. And this book does not deserve to be in our schools and on our shelves. I sent out my research team last week, and they obtained this at the market at the Rollins Circle, Rollins Park, I think it's called. That's what they told me. And the two books, this one and the Golden English for Basic 4, cost 56 cedis. So it is being sold. So when the publishers claim that they don't know how it found its way to the market, and they are feigning ignorance, who is profiting from the sales of this book? We clearly cannot buy that, Mr. Speaker. We cannot buy that. The publishers must take responsibility. They the market, they must withdraw them. And Mr. Speaker, NACA comes up also for criticism. Mr. Speaker, I hold in my hands a letter that NACA wrote to the publishers on 25th September 2020. And when you read the first paragraph, Mr. Speaker, yes, for the record, NACA did not give them final approval. But NACA said in the first paragraph that your submission, having gone through the first stage of the textbook approval process, was found to have satisfied most of the technical and content requirements, unquote. Most of the technical and content requirements. So NACA itself, Mr. Speaker, has let this country down. They've let us down. I have all the 96 pages of this book and the 288 pages of the second book, the Golden English Basic 4, and I don't see how this should satisfy any technical and content requirements.
While other members joined in the condemnation and demanded the immediate withdrawal of the books.
I want to say that we should go ahead and condemn it in no uncertain terms, because we need to deter future historians from putting out inaccurate information that will cause harm to our citizenry. Mr. Speaker, the wrong depiction of airways for a long time has led to a lot of discrimination and a lot of hurt for the Ewe people. These ill-informed idiosyncrasies have caused to marginalization of the tribe, so that sometimes if you're an Ewe, you are either not employed or you don't get promotion. The classical example is the recent case of Mr. Domelevu. Stereotyping of ethnic groups, even in jest, must stop. Guns aren't all quarrelsome people. Akans aren't thieves or Sakawa. And Ewas don't all love Juju. And Northerners aren't whatever it is they are reputed to be. I have first cousins from Agbozume and Avemebeme, and I identify with them all. One of my favorite places to spend time in this country is Leklebi, and I think that the Volta region has one of the most beautiful places in this country. It is important that no ethnic group in Ghana should be unfairly stereotyped or stigmatized. Our textbooks must accurately depict our culture as it is being used to educate and not to corrupt our impressionable youth.
After all the talk, if we want to stop some of these things, we would have to take a serious step in giving NACA the power. Because, Mr. Speaker, when this thing came up, all the criticism, the question is, what was the regulator there doing? What did the regulator do? But the regulator has no power. Unlike Food and Drugs Authority, that would have the power to even come and confiscate. Unfortunately, somebody can be in his corner somewhere and write something, and it gets onto the market, and some of these things are experienced. Mr. Speaker, yes, of course, I am concerned, I'm worried.
The ranking member on the Education Committee, Peter Nochukoto, wants the House to summon officials of NACA and the Education Ministry to appear before the committee to answer questions.
Every ethnic group in this country has unique features, characteristics, values, and norms. Every ethnic group in this country has a cultural identity, such as traditional deities that are cherished and preserved. It is therefore naive for the publication of textbooks that tend to portray every ethnic group as a voodoo-worshipping people. In a world of development, where science and technology have become the order of the day, a publisher in his figment of imagination thinks that it is juju that makes a team win a football match, and assign such magical powers to the Ewe people. In the third book, History of Ghana by Bedu Nkansa Publications, textbook 3, a reference is made to the erroneous impression that the Ewes vote for their chiefs to be selected. We see this as a distortion of our tradition and history, and feel slighted by the publishers of this book. The book further alleges that this so-called vote for chiefs is influenced by the elders. The publishers must note that the Ewe people have rich cultures, including right to succession of chiefs, and nowhere in Ewe land that the ballot is used to select a chief. We have defined traditional steps and rights that are followed, like any other tribe in Ghana, for succession to our chieftaincy stools. Mr. Speaker, the voter MPs caucus of Ghana's Parliament has taken notice of the public outrage and condemnation against the publishers' clear, ethnocentric, and divisive content. It is important to state unequivocally that as a caucus, we find the contents of these books most distasteful, backward, unacceptable, and most reprehensible. It is part of a grand scheme by certain individuals to deliberately denigrate, vilify, indoctrinate, and poison the minds of people against the every ethnic group. Mr. Speaker, today it is the every ethnic group. Tomorrow it will be another tribe in Ghana. As a nation, we need to stand for each other so that we do not engage in tribal bigotry and tendencies that can divide us. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, it is important that the various state agencies and institutions live up to expectations so that matters of this nature do not escalate into heartbreaking events. There is a need to unite this country as having one destiny with one people and move forward. We therefore call for the immediate withdrawal of these books from our schools and bookshops by the Ministry of Education, and the publishers are made to suffer the necessary sanctions to serve as deterrents to others.
In another development, the Cape Coast High Court has adjourned the case challenging the election of Joe Jachi Kwesing as MP for Asing North. A resident of Asing North, Michael Ankuma Inimfa, filed a petition praying the court to disqualify the MP because he held dual citizenship at the time of filing his nomination to contest the 2020 parliamentary elections. The court has also ordered the parties involved to be present in court on the adjourned date and submit their proposed issues that would guide the hearing. Richard Konyako has more on this report.
And subsequently granted by the court to restrain the MP from being sworn in as an MP and from holding himself as such. In this present petition, the petitioner is saying per Article 94 of the 1992 Constitution, the Representation of the People Law, Act 284, and the CI 127, the MP was not qualified at the time of filing to contest the 2020 parliamentary elections and should be disqualified. Counsel for the MP had earlier argued in the injunction case that it is not at the time of filing to contest, but once the application to renounce one's citizenship has been set in motion, it is deemed to be effective, and that it is at the time of being sworn in as the MP that the law applies. Today, lawyers for both first and second respondents were not present in court, but the presiding judge, Justice Kwesi Buachi, stated he was in control of the petition hearing and it is not a party to an election petition that should determine when they would want to be in court. He subsequently ordered all parties to the petition to be present at the adjourned date of 24th and 25th March and submit their proposed issues for the hearing of the case. The presiding judge also gave the indication to the parties present that he would want an expeditious hearing of the petition, and thus the parties to the case should cooperate to ensure an expeditious hearing. On the 24th and 25th of March, the lawyers would be in court to iron out their disagreement as far as the issues that would be set down for the hearing of the case is concerned. One of the issues that will be set down for the election petition would be whether or not the qualification criteria for who an MP is applies at the time of filing his nomination to contest or at the time of being sworn in as a member of parliament. From the Cape Coast High Court, my name is Richard Konyako for Joy News.
You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break at this point. We're still ahead in the bulletin. Government says public sector workers should not expect any significant increase in wages for the next few years, citing the dire economic situation the country is faced with.
And services, capital, social intervention programs, that portion alone is not even enough to pay for wages and salaries. If you pay for wages and salaries, that portion, you are left with about 40% in the whole.
We'll get a reaction from Labour. Do stay tuned in. We'll be back in a bit. If you're a public sector worker looking forward to a huge wage increment, you may have to be measured in your expectations because the Finance Ministry says there is simply no money to meet that demand. Indeed, this situation is likely to persist until 2024. Government is projecting to collect 72 billion cedis in revenue for the 2021 fiscal year, but 90% of the money will go into interest payment on loans and compensations, leaving virtually nothing for development. Contributing to a discussion on the budget organized by the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the technical advisor at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Samuel Ni-Noya-Shong, called on the country to tighten its belt for harder times.
Compensation for employees alone, the unencumbered portion of domestic revenue, what I mean is if you net out all the mandatory transfer, which is required by law, get fund transfer, national health insurance, DACF, if you net out all those ones, the rest which is left to pay wages, salaries, use of goods and services, capital, social intervention programs, that portion alone is not even enough to pay for wages and salaries. In fact, if you pay for wages and salaries, that portion, you are left with about 40% in the whole. So you have to go and borrow to pay for that extra 40%, plus for goods and services, as well as capital expenditure and social intervention programs. Not to mention other government guaranteed debts which have to be catered for. So it is not a rosy picture, and we've got to call a spade a spade. So when people go about saying that there's, we don't need the taxes, government man give this, government man give that, the reality is that the money is not available. And we must well recognize that and work within that tightrope so that we all have to share the burden, so to.
Well, joining us with a reaction from Labour is Angel Kabonu, who is the president of NAGRA. Thank you very much, Mr. Kabonu, for making time to speak with us. Now, you've heard what the Finance Ministry is saying about your expectations. What's your reaction to all of that?
Well, we are very disappointed at the position of the Finance Ministry, because before you make an announcement of this nature, you will have to convene a public sector wage negotiation committee and let the public sector wage negotiation committee take a decision. At the public sector wage negotiation committee, we have the Ministry of Finance, labor unions, Ministry of Labor, and all other stakeholders. But for an announcement like this to come, when even the government is not come clean with the people, to let the people know that we are in an economic distress and that together as a people, let's find solution to this and that. Look, one question someone will ask is that, how did we get here?
Mr. Kabanu, to be fair to the technical advisor, he's not suggesting that there's not going to be any wage increases at all. All he's saying is that you should be measured in your expectations.
Well, let me tell you that for the past 4 years, we have never had any salary increase more than 12%. So when he's saying that we should be measured, what percentage or within what percentage bracket is he talking about? Since for the past 4 years, the highest percentage we got was 12%. Is he talking about 5%? Is he talking about, what percentage is he talking about? Because you see, in salary negotiations, you just don't bundle about figures. You bring onto the table the various economic indices and the realities for a decision to be taken, both at minimum wage and base pay. In any case, why will he not allow the Ministry of Labor, the ministry that champions such things, together with the Fair Wages and Salaries Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, why will he not allow these organizations to do their work?
But you also appreciate that we're in some difficult times. And you were indicating earlier that government hasn't made any such pronouncement, but we're all aware of the COVID-19 pandemic and the fact that, well, all across the globe, lots of people lost their jobs. Here in Ghana, government says that it didn't lay off any workers. And so if the public sector workers have maintained their jobs or haven't lost their jobs, they should be grateful.
You bring this to the negotiation table. If that is the position of government, government should bring it to the negotiation table. If it's the position of government that the freebies that were given prior to 2021 is beginning to bite the economy, government should bring that to the table. A unilateral announcement by one faction of the table is unacceptable.
Are you willing to take less than you probably had in previous years? You talk about 12%. Are you willing to take the 5% if government offers that?
As to what Labour would take will be reflecting the realities on the table. How much is an olunka of Gary? How much is my transportation from where I live to work? How much is rent? How much are the economic realities that confront me on a daily basis? All these things influence. And then, of course, government also will have to show good faith. How much is government ready to sacrifice? From this budget, there is increase of 300% in terms of expenditure to the presidency. Is the presidency ready to come to around 50%? For the past 10 years, compare the salary increase in percentage terms and in real terms of Article 71 office holders as against the general worker population. Are they also ready to tighten their belt? All these things will come to play and it will influence decisions that will be taken at the negotiation table.
When do you expect to begin these negotiations? I know you have regular annual negotiations.
Per the arrangement we had with the Ministry of Labour a fortnight ago, everybody was supposed to start getting ready and prepared for April so that negotiations commence.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Angel Kabonu. He's president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers. Meanwhile, former Finance Minister said Tekpe is cautioning government to learn to explore other revenue mobilization options to develop the country other than taxation. Though he acknowledges the need to raise revenue, as he did in his time in office, he believes there are lessons to learn from his era. He was speaking on Prime Morning on Joy Prime.
You look at the midterm expenditure or budget framework that is presented in the budget. We are supposed to reducing deficits. All the adjustments expectations are on increasing revenues. None on expenditure because expenditure levels are going to be increasing throughout to 2024. I think that it's important for us, as has been said, to also look at, I know it's very difficult because interest payments and
Watching Joy News Prime, we're taking a break. We have business up next, and in business, government reaffirms commitment to complete Saglemi housing project as soon as possible.
Hello, good evening. It's time for business. My name is Charles Aite. The Minister for Works and Housing, Anumabu, has disclosed that government will complete this Saglemi housing project before the end of the second term of the Akufo-Addo administration. According to him, government has intentions to use the facility in bridging the housing deficit, which currently stands at 2.5 million. He made the assurance when he led a delegation to pay a working visit to the site and some affordable housing projects by the Tema Development Corporation. Here's more. The day tour by the Minister for Works and Housing, Anumabu, was intended to abreast himself with ongoing housing projects in the country in order to make a decision on them. The Saglemi housing project has about 636 housing units fully completed, but awaiting some basic social infrastructure before it could be occupied.
More work has to be done. We have invested close to 200 million into this project, and this is where we are. The project, I believe, was a great idea, but the conception, the design, and the implementation did not go well at all. And that is why we find ourselves in this situation. But like I said, I'm committed to putting the past behind us and charting a new way forward so that we can complete the project. Over 1,000 housing units. Currently, we are saying that the current housing deficit is 2 million. So if you're able to complete this over 1,000 housing units, it's a big step towards tackling the housing deficit.
The minister and the team also visited some developed sites by the Tema Development Corporation, where works are ongoing at the Bon Affordable Housing and Affordable Mortgage Scheme project. General Manager at TDC, Samuel Sante, has been briefing journalists on progress made so far.
The Bon is made up of 3,016 units. It's the biggest of all the Government of Ghana affordable housing projects. It's the biggest in Ghana. So we are churning out 3,016 units. I must say that we are just about 20% completion rate. You know, obviously because of funding breaks and also capacity issues with contractors. And now that we have the right partner to go, we are going at a very speedy rate, and we hope that by the end of 2022, we would have finished all those apartments. You understand? Yes.
So with that one bedroom?
Yeah, starting from studio, and as you see, the studio is going for about 49,000 cedis. Yes, cedis, not dollars. And then a 2-bedroom is about 167,000 cedis. That's the upper limit. And if you compare in the market, it's the lowest.
The minister assured that the facilities will be completed early in the interest of the state. Now, government has been tasked to ensure tax efficiency and automate systems to plug all revenue generation loopholes with the introduction of some new taxes amid tax rebates for struggling businesses. Captains of industry at the just-ended Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry virtual seminar on the 2021 budget explored strategies and incentives needed to remain resilient amid the austere budget. Here's more. Economist Professor Peter Korte has called for efficiency in government revenue collection regime. Taking his turn at the virtual seminar by the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Professor Korte, in response to the introduction and upward adjustment of some taxes and levies, argued that government should have explored other ways of expanding the tax net.
Would have some positive effects on business, and I think that has to be highlighted. We've seen a lot in the CARES program, the CARES of Atampa program, supporting private businesses with soft loans of 100 billion with other activities. Certainly, if government is able to find the money, I think that will help. I see in that program that government will provide 30% of the funding, and then 70% is going to come from the private sector. But my question is, if the private sector is already struggling, I don't know how well that can be achieved. Perhaps we may have to look at the funding arrangements, because in 2021, that might be difficult. Perhaps in the years ahead, government will be able to get more from private sector to fund this laudable program.
Meanwhile, senior partner with KPMG, Kofi Frimpong Kore, says despite the introduction of new taxes, businesses must also be tax compliant to take advantage of various tax rebates and waivers government is offering in the 2021 budget.
If I was giving them allowances that are taxable, did I tax them? If I did not tax them, then you need to now rework all the taxes that you should have. So you need to have a thorough review of your own operations from all transactions, VAT. Did you apply all the VAT that you should supposed to have applied? And if you did, have you filed all the returns that you should have filed? And mind you, if you don't also file your returns on the due dates, they all attract these penalties that we are talking about. So it's very, very important that businesses will sit back, what I would call will retreat and review their transactions or their activities from the prior years or from the prior activities to be able to understand and appreciate how much they owe, and so that we take advantage of these incentives that have been provided in the budget.
Speaking to Joy Business, the president of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Clement Osei-Amoako, charged businesses to brace themselves for the cost element in the 2021 budget.
COVID has brought a lot of difficulties on us as a country and even the world at large. And so a time has come for us to swallow the bitter pill. Some of the levies that were introduced were very essential. As I said, some taxes are necessary evil. The country must be focused into the future. The government was confronted with a debt stock of about 291 billion, both domestic and international, and also have in his arms either to go for loans or perhaps increase tax as a revenue. And looking at our debt stock, it was not encouraging for us to go borrowing again.
The GNCCI virtual seminar on the 2021 national budget was themed Prospects for Recovery, Resilience and Competitiveness for the Private Sector Growth. Well, the MD for Bank of Africa has lamented the financial sector cleanup levy of 5% on profit before tax introduced in the 2021 budget. He describes this as punishing the good-standing banks who survived COVID-19. That's how we end business. Sports is up next.
All right, it's time for Showbiz, and Becky Bex is here. Hello, Bex.
Hello to you, Easy. Let's talk some drill music, and one of the guys making Ghana proud is Yao Tog.
All right.
So he was on the Showbiz Now show earlier on Joy Prime, and he's been talking about his album. He has a new album coming up, and here's all you need to know about the album. We can't wait for the Time EP to drop this song off that particular EP, okay. And we're very much excited for Yao Tog. But one other lady who is new on the musical scene, she is called Kiki Mali.
All right.
What she did to get Bullet's attention to sign her onto his label is very interesting. She had a tattoo. Yeah, she explains in this interview with Danny Dusty.
Okay, so I'm curious.
Yeah.
Considering where the tattoo is, how did Bullet get to see?
So she took a video of it and sent it to Bullet's not phone, Instagram. So okay. That's how they met on social media. But before I go easy, let's talk about Kirk Franklin. I'm very particular about Kirk Franklin because, you know, he was once on the Adom Praise stage, was a powerful performance. He had an issue with his son. So his son recorded it. He said some unprintable words, but Kirk is out. And he's been explaining and apologizing for everything that he said in that audio, Dudley. Kirk Franklin there. So that ends it for Showbiz.
All right. Thank you very much, Becky, for bringing us Showbiz. That'll be it for those of you who are watching on Joy Prime. But for more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com, and there are some interesting headlines there, some interesting stories. You can get to check them out and read them. But I'll be back with more news. Stay tuned in. Greater Accra Regional Minister Henry Quartey has promised to look into the controversial land dispute between the youth of La and the Ghana Armed Forces. It follows mounting tensions in the area after some youth, together with local chief priests, stormed the Lands Commission to demand an audience with the Lands Minister. The Coalition of La Association, the umbrella body of the youth there, today submitted a petition at the Greater Accra Regional Office. Receiving the petition, Sir Henry Quartey asked the group to furnish his outfit with documents that will aid his quest.
We have all agreed that they have to provide us with something to work with. They have given us a summary verbally, but I think it's only proper for them to furnish me with the necessary documents so I can also engage the Lands Commission and the Minister of Defense, so we invite them into a meeting and see our way forward. Democracy indeed is deepening in this part of the world, precisely Ghana. So may I humbly appeal to them to desist from going to offices and demonstrations and all that. We should maintain or open the line of communication just as we are doing.
President of the Coalition of La Associations, Oscar Glover, pledged to provide the document, the supporting document in 24 hours, but he insists the military backs off the over 250-acre parcel of land at Airport Hills until the issues are resolved.
Us to bring him the necessary information as far as our lands and the military is concerned. We've promised him to do that by tomorrow, and he's promised us to follow up as far as he can. He's asked us to maintain peace, but just as he said, he won't stop us on our rights. When it happens that the military goes there and we see they are developing, we will go there also. But we hope the military will also respect the law and halt whatever they are doing until there is a settlement, which we believe this time we are going to get it.
A 9-year-old boy has been killed after his stepfather set their home ablaze at Medoma in the Ashanti region. The blaze swept through 4 rooms in the apartment in which they live, affecting other families. The man, known only as Ajimang, his wife and twin of the deceased, sustained various degrees of injury. Nana Ajima visited the scene and filed this report.
The 9-year-old boy, Prince Oti Atta, is said to have shown great potential in drawing. He is described as a bubbly kid. The stepfather is said to have repeatedly assaulted his wife and the twins. Landlord Daniel Opoku narrates what happened the night before the incident. I met his wife. Immediately I entered the house that night. She pleaded with me to speak to her husband about a phone her brother bought for her. I called him and advised him against repeated assault of the woman. Mr. Opoku says deep into the night he heard a loud cry for help, which caused him to wake up. She told me her husband had fled after starting the fire. He had locked the burglar proof, but I managed to save the woman and the girl. The woman told me the man had wet a blanket with petrol and thrown it on the boy through the window. Firefighters, after extinguishing the fire, recovered the charred body of the victim and deposited it at the morgue. Other families occupying the house managed to escape unhurt, but they lost all their property to the inferno with no hope of a place to pass the night. She says, the noise made me come out and I saw smoke everywhere. All I could do was to pick my son.
And I'm in me banner back one or canoe, and I'm doing me didn't share the best to be children. Send me Pierre, but try to cry out, now. The Pierre bedroom, I say, not a jadder, then more. A shit to. It's a Pierre and I, the Janus to see, high.
The cause of the man's action remains unclear. He is receiving treatment at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital under police watch. For Joy News, Nanaya Ojima reporting.
The spat between retired Auditor General Yao Domlovo and the board chair seems not to be ending even after his exit from the service. Yao Domlovo retired after an acrimonious relationship with the board, which often played out in the media. The latest spat has to do with a letter from the board chair of the service directing Mr. Domlovo to submit comprehensive handing over notes to the acting Auditor General. The retired Auditor General has since replied, and Joy News has cited copies of the correspondence between the two, and here is the letter from the Audit Service. It states, we refer to the letter referenced and they quoted dated 3rd March 2021 from the Office of the President regarding your retirement and request you to prepare comprehensive handing over of the audit service to Mr. Johnson Siedu, who has been asked to continue to act as Auditor General until the President appoints a substantive Auditor General. We'll be grateful if you could complete the exercise within 2 weeks of receipt of this letter. And then we have the response from the retired Auditor General, Yao Domolovo, who says, this refers to your letter dated March 16, 2021, with reference number, and it quoted, on the above subject. Your request for a handing over note is preposterous to me because I have been out of office for more than 8 months. Furthermore, paragraph 2 of the letter from the Office of the President dated 29 June 2020 requested that I hand over all matters relating to the Office of the Auditor General to Mr. Johnson Siedu, who has been in charge since July 1, 2020. It continues, the letter from the Secretary of the President referred to in one above, delivered to me after 4 p.m. on June 29, 2020, requested that I start the leave on 1st of July 2020, contrary to Section 27 of the Labour Act. The section provides that at least 30 days notice shall be given to the worker prior to the commencement of the leave. The short and unlawful notice from the Presidency notwithstanding, I prepared a handing over note and handed over to the Acting Auditor General on 30th June 2020, and he has since been in charge for over 8 months. When I resumed work on the 3rd of March, Mr. Johnson Siedu did not hand over to me with the excuse that the handing over note was not ready. After 9 p.m. of 3rd March 2020, the day I resumed work, I received a letter from the Secretary to the President requesting that I proceed on retirement. All the above notwithstanding, if you wish, please direct the Acting Auditor General to hand over to me, and I'll thereafter hand over to him. The Electricity Company of Ghana is to shed load in the Volta Noti regions to enable GRIDCO carry out maintenance works at Asekpe bulk supply point.
In Ghana, we have 3 key players on the power supply chain. First of all, we have those upstream, that is those responsible for generation. We have generating companies like VRA, and then independent power producers like Car Power, Asogli, and Ameri. From then, they will move on to those responsible for transmission in the country. We have the Ghana Grid Company. They are responsible for transmission in the country. So they will hold power from the source of generation all the way to a place we call the bulk supply points, where ECG meets with GRIDCO in the southern sector. So ECG is responsible for distribution. So you realize that ECG is at the tail end of the power supply chain. We are what we call downstream. So whatever happens upstream sometimes affects our operations as well. And then in the Volta region, GRIDCO normally meets with ECG at a key place that we call Asekpe. That is where the transmission lines come in from Akusumo to Asekpe, and then we step it down gradually to other bulk supply points at Pando, Ho, Peve, and then KJB BSP as well as so GRIDCO has informed them that they want to do planned maintenance work on their transformer at Asekpe. And from what we have been told, they will carry out extensive maintenance work on the transformers. You know, when you visit Asekpe, we have, in fact, GRIDCO has 2 transformers over there. Both are 25 MVA capacity. So the entire region was depending on the 50 MVA capacity. But what they have written to us or communicated to us is that they want to undertake extensive maintenance work on one of the 2 transformers over there. We were told the transformer oil was leaking as well. So they will try to find ways and means to correct that. I understand they will be looking at trying to seal it or even treating the oil, like a whole lot of maintenance works that will go into that particular activity. And they require 5 days to do that work. They will be starting tomorrow, Thursday to Monday, and then they will finish it. However, once there are 2 transformers there, GRIDCO communicated to us, and as a company, we needed to find ways and means of ensuring that the impact of the outage is minimized. Though it is a planned maintenance work, the impact of the outage should be minimized. So GRIDCO together with ECG came out with a plan, because we'll only be depending on one of the transformers instead of the 2. So which is the available load over there is what we'll have to distribute to ensure everyone enjoys power supply throughout these 5 days. So we've come out with a timetable, and that is what people are trying to misinterpret as doomsday timetable. It is actually a timetable based on the planned maintenance request by GridCo, not a doomsday outage or doomsday timetable. So whatever that is happening now, the outage that is going to be experienced for the next 5 days is as a result of the maintenance work that GridCo intends to carry out. And as a company, we've always been operating the open communication system such that we are honest and transparent in our communications as well.
Well, that schedule is available on our social media handles. In fact, you can go to Joy News on TV on Instagram, and it's all there for you, so you can find out when your area, if you're in the Volta region, you can find out when your area will be going out. The Central Regional Health Directorate says it is directing all its energies and resources to tackle the issues of maternal deaths in the region. The region lost 75 mothers to childbirth in 2020, giving it an institutional maternal mortality rate of 109 deaths to 100,000 live births. Speaking at the Regional Health Performance Review, Regional Director of Health, Dr. Kusia Sapong, indicated steps have been taken to track and audit all maternal deaths occurring at a record time in the region. Richard Kojonyako has more in the following report.
During the holistic assessment of the Central Region, the region's score was 3.6, which indicated that the region was a moderately performing region. Regional Health Director Dr. Akosua Sapon reviews a cursory look at the holistic assessment score shows the region saw a decline in performance in family planning indicators. She says their set objectives are to evaluate and to map out new performance strategies that would propel the region into a high-performing region in the country. On maternal deaths, Dr. Sapon indicates there is a plan in place to set the region on course to achieve the SDG targets.
Another aspect of our performance and service delivery, which we need to collectively focus our attention and tackle with all the resources at our disposal, Professor Chair, is the issue of maternal death in our region. In 2020, the region lost 75 mothers to childbirth, giving us an institutional maternal mortality rate of 109 deaths per 100,000 live births. Even though this ratio compares favorably with the national ratio, we are still far from reaching the SDG target of 70 deaths per 100,000 live births. The critical issues that border our minds here are why the mothers are dying. Since January 2020, we have refocused our maternal health strategy and putting in place zonal teams with obstetrician gynecologist specialists in each of the zones to monitor, supervise, and train service providers on maternal issues and take steps to audit all deaths occurring within the zones on record time. We have also introduced the maternal death tracker in the process to track and report all deaths occurring anywhere in the region timely.
Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the region has recorded over 3,000 cases, with active cases currently around 300. Dr. Sapon is asking health professionals to take good care of themselves if the nation could contain the virus.
Containing COVID-19 also means that we are taking adequate steps to protect ourselves as health workers by not only adhering or observing the COVID-19 protocols, but by also adhering strictly to the infection prevention control regimes we are very much accustomed to. If the nation will succeed in this fight against the pandemic, we as health workers have a role to play.
Former Dean of the School of Medical Sciences at the University of Cape Coast, Professor Harold Amonu Kofi, called for the promotion and financing of medical research in the country.
Step up research to support, to give scientific basis to the care that is being provided. And so we need to put in place structures to promote research and also to finance research. One of the major problems in this country is that research funding is very difficult to get. But he's emphasized this, and I support that very strongly.
He called for more attention for antenatal services, maternal care, and the need to increase support to family services in the wake of the regional performance reports. Richard Kwejinyako
Joy News, Cape Coast.
The Ghana Institution of Engineers has announced a clampdown on quack engineers as it begins implementation of its newly passed legislative instrument. Incoming President Engineer Professor Reverend Charles Adams says the institution is mobilizing other crafts under its umbrella to promote quality standards in the industry. He was speaking at a news conference to announce the institution's upcoming 51st Annual General Meeting and Conference. Love Firm's Erastus Asarodonko has more.
At the peak of extreme dust pollution on the Lake Road in Kumasi, the question of best road engineering practices come into focus. While some contractors adopt prudent ways to minimize environmental pollution, others contribute to harsh situations for residents. Here, the contractor decides to keep the asphalt because there are settlements here and he wants to minimize dust pollution. To the layman, this is good engineering. But to the other side, from Atonso Agogo and beyond, belongs to a different contractor altogether, Kofi Job Construction. Now, when you look at the dust pollution in that area, it's caused by the total removal of the asphalt whilst the road is still under construction, which is causing extreme dust pollution to residents there. Incoming President of the Ghana Institution of Engineers, Engineer Professor Reverend Charles Adams, attributes the situation to lack of financing.
Depending on the cash flow situation, when you don't have the finance or what you have planned, you may not be able to implement it as you would have wished. But I want to plead with the road agencies responsible that even if you have not been paid, and the thing has been ripped off and is creating dust, the least he can do is to water the road to ensure that businesses can continue in the corridor.
The role of engineers in ensuring quality road engineering has been brought to the fore as the Ghana Institution of Engineers prepares to host its 51st Annual General Meeting and Conference in Kumasi. The theme is Engineering, a Key to Sustainable Development. Chairman of the local organizing committee, Engineer Nana Pukwajiman, says engineers will deliberate on ways to contribute to national development. He spoke about a crackdown on quack engineers.
We have specifications for the Ministry of Roads and Highways, so we try as much as possible to adhere. Of course, there might be recalcitrant engineers, and now that we have a legislative instrument, we are going to penalize people who are parading themselves as engineers but who do not have the professional certification.
Some roads constructed barely a year ago have started deteriorating. Engineer Nana Pukwajiman, who is the Kumasi Urban Roads Director, gives possible reasons for the unfortunate situation.
You see probably people washing vehicles on the carriageway. So the combination, the chemical combination of the soap, the chemicals and water seeps. And the number one enemy of the road is water. We expect that we all protect the road. But you see mechanics on the road change, and these are things I've always written to the city authorities. We need to make sure that we told them and even surcharge them so that it serves as a deterrent to others.
The 51st AGM and Conference of the Ghana Institution of Engineers will promote the role of engineers in ensuring sustainable development in the country. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asarodonko, Kumasi.
Some residents of Dansoman have complained about a sharp increase in their water bills. They tell Joy News they used to pay between 300 and 400 cedis a month, but recent bills received have shown an increase of more than 100%. They want authorities to explain the abnormal bills.
A couple of weeks ago, the water bill that we use in our house, it brought a bill, and then I realized that a bill that we used to pay somewhere, sometimes 60 cedis or 70 cedis, had about 50% adjustment, and I could not really fathom. No, we used to pay sometimes 50 or 60 Ghana cedis until now. So the bill came into 120 Ghana cedis. If you look at it critically, there's about 100% increment.
I see.
Yes, so, and that's outrageous. But I realized that even consumption has reduced. But same, if consumption reduces, then perhaps you would agree with me that you should pay lesser. Not so good. But you go there and tell you that's a bill. So, I mean, you've got to pay. I think that we have to perhaps maybe monitor it the first, second, third month, because I hear in the news that the government has extended the free usage up to, I think, June. You have to be afraid of these politicians, but well, that is what we are. So for me, I think that as a citizen, yes, I need to first of all go to the Ghana Water West Company to lodge a complaint, which I have done, but I want to monitor it for the first, second, and third month, and then I can really agree that the government has some malice with respect to giving free water to people as opposed to supposedly being said during the COVID era. And I think that this is very, very unpalatable to citizens of Ghana.
We actually, the last bill that we were supposed to receive was March, before the president came and said pay the April bill for us free. Before that bill, normally our average payment is way between, because it's an apartment, I was living in an apartment, we pay around, it started from 300, 400, that's the average I will pay. But this March one, the bill came 900 and something. We were surprised. So I asked my other guy to go and check what caused the increment. He said there's a leakage in the house. No. We told him, no. This is not it's not our house alone. The increment is cut across the whole community. It means the whole community has a leakage. So if you are saying leakage, but there's no leakage in my house. There's no leakage. So if you are talking about leakage, it's the whole community.
Ever wondered whether a geographer played a critical role in getting Ghana's map in place is from? What about Dr. James Agri? Well, in our Ghana Man series, Richard Kojunyako takes us to Anumabu, one of the places of historical significance in Ghana, to tell the story of these great icons in the country's history.
Dr. Agri, Nana Amonu the fourth, and then the last one, George Ekemfegesen. These individuals are all indigenes of Anumabu. These people contributed beyond Ghana and Africa.
Victor Sejisi is a site manager for the Anumabu Memorial Garden. In this garden stands 3 great monuments beautifully sculpted. Dr. James Agri, George Ekemfegesen, and Nana Monu IV.
These 3 individuals are all indigenes of Anumabu. George Ekemfegesen, we refer to him as Jesus Christ because he died at the age of 33. When we mention this young man's name, it reminds us of our what? Ghana map. He was assigned by the British to demarcate our borders. When you mention Dr. Agri, then you are talking about girl-child education. His contribution to Ghana and Africa.
That's not all. Sculptures of returnees from their sojourn from the Americas, the Caribbeans, and other places are also here, and they speak boldly to the happenings some years back.
We are welcoming these generational slaves. So these people are generational. 400 years, their mothers, their fathers went through this fort, through the Atlantic Ocean, and then now we are welcoming all of them back. Their back is facing the Atlantic Ocean because they went through the fort, through the Atlantic Ocean. They are coming back.
The community folk here are excited about the contributions of Anumabu in the history of Ghana.
Queen of Agri, Ofi Anumabu ha, ne mami Finimabu, ne papa so Finimabu, ne Okobonebro Ugwe, into all this school, Ghana.
Kwekun Kruma is a fisherman here at Anumabu. Kweku tells me how the town of Anumabu earned its name and how excited he and his colleagues are when the name of Anumabu is mentioned. Our forefathers came from Eja and came to settle at Anumabu. On their way, they saw many birds perching on a huge rock. They said, what kind of rock plays host to birds like that? So they said Rock of Birds, and that's how the name has become. I get really excited when they talk about the history of Anumabu. I'm proud because I also hail from here. All these are because of the exploits of our forefathers. Anumabu is one of the places the transatlantic slave trade was done. Fort Williams of Anumabu played a key role. In this same town is a second Methodist church to be built in Ghana. The folks here say Anumabu should definitely be everybody's destination in terms of tourism and the history of Ghana. Richard Kwejinyako, Joy News, Anumabu.
We'll take a break to bring you more business.
Welcome to Business. I'm Charles Aite. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has begun its second meeting for the year. Key issues expected to dominate discussions include the city's stability, rising debt stock, and the fast-tracking the economic recovery. But how crucial is this meeting, and why should you be worried about it? George Riafi has the explanation.
It's happening at a time that all data points to a sound banking sector despite COVID-19 shocks. But the challenge now is how the Bank of Ghana ensures that it uses all the policy measures in its fold to ensure that the banking sector is immune or not affected by the happenings on the fiscal front, like the rise in public debt stock. The governor of the Bank of Ghana, who is also the chairman of the Monetary Policy Committee, was worried about how the second COVID-19 wave may pose a bigger threat to the recovery of the economy and even the banking sector. But with the deployment of vaccines, one is not sure whether the governor of the Bank of Ghana may revise his note. The Ghana cedi has been fairly stable for the first 2 months of this year, and there are projections that it could strengthen further due to Eurobond inflows. But the central bank want to introduce further actions to consolidate these recent gains. The monetary policy of the Bank of Ghana would also look at all the development in the economy and see whether they should use the policy rate, which currently stands at 14.5%, to correct some market distortions. This is basically the rate at which it lends to commercial banks, which can be used to mop up excess liquidity in the market and check inflation, which has seen a marginal pickup to hit 10.3% for the month of February. Reviewing the policy rate could also impact on the cost of credit and that loan that is currently being serviced. The meeting, which begins today, is expected to end on Friday. The Monetary Policy Committee will announce its decision on the new policy rate next Monday, as well as the assessment of the health of the economy and the banking sector.
Well, the standard of living and employment could be affected badly even after COVID-19 is brought under control. This is one of the concerns captured in the latest World Bank report on the Ghanaian economy. According to the bank, the massive job losses as a result of the pandemic has negatively affected the income levels of many families. The report also noted that most workers that have been asked to go home will not be recalled, even when the pandemic is effectively brought under control. This will, in the long term, worsen the poverty levels in Ghana. Of course, the bank was, however, worried that some of the policy measures being rolled out by government may not be enough to correct the situation. Well, 30 students from communities in the catchment of the Chirano Gold Mine Limited have received scholarships to further their education. Officials of the company say they have invested 120,000 cedis to economically empower the mining communities through STEM education. Prince Apia has more in this report.
Communities in the catchment of mining companies have often complained of neglected support. As a result, community empowerment has become very critical to the core of these mining companies, especially Chirano Gold Mine Limited. It has therefore awarded 30 needy but brilliant students scholarships to further their tertiary education and acquired skills. Communication Officer Kwabna Owusu-Amprechum says it is part of the mine's quest to economically transform these catchment communities.
It is our hope that when these people are able to come out successfully, they will empower themselves, get good jobs, and also transform their society. This is not a one-off scholarship. Every year it will be awarded in the foreseeable future. And so over the years, let's say 30 people every year. Within 10 years, we are going to have more than 300 people, well-educated people who have gone through tertiary institutions, who will become very prominent people in this country and this area. And when we have that, we believe, besides the other infrastructure and other things, the training that we give people, we believe the mine will transform the area. Throughout the education, we are going to take all academic fees. We are going to give them stipends for the entire duration of their education. We are also going to provide them accommodation for the entire duration of the studies. We are paying for all of this.
The scholarships are being awarded under two programs, the General Manager Scholarship and Chirano Sifhiman Foundation Scholarship. Terence Watungwa is Vice President and General Manager of Chirano Gold Mines Limited.
When anybody is the first to do something, the first to achieve scholarships, there comes along a certain responsibility. So that while we are here to see that this is a noble cause, this is a worthy cause, you, the recipients, the first ones to receive it, the responsibility is to make it work. Work very hard, succeed in your studies, be a source of inspiration to each other and also to those who are going to follow behind.
The General Manager Scholarship, fully funded by the mining firm, was awarded to 6 students, while the Chirano Sifhiman Foundation Scholarship went to 24 students. Lily Inkansa Bosompem is one of the beneficiaries, who is in the 3rd year medical school at KNUST.
For giving us this opportunity to explore in our educational system, and we'll never forget to give back to the community, just as they've given to us. We are not going to relax. We are rather going to work harder than before to serve as an example for our junior members coming to join us to make this community a better one.
This year, a total of 120,000 cedis will be spent on both scholarships. Prince Apia reporting.
Well, MD of Bank of Africa has lamented the financial sector cleanup levy of 5% on profit before tax introduced in the budget. Taking his turn, the seminar organized by the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kobe Anda described the tax as punishment for good banks that survived the banking crisis.
Most the average tax, the effective tax rate is 25%. The effective tax rate for a bank now is 35%, because we pay a 5% tax, which is not deductible, the stabilization development levy. Yes, we pay. Before the cleanup. And then now they are proposing that we pay an additional 5%, which totals 10%. You add to our 25%, we are paying 35%. So every profit we make, government takes 35% of it. And that's huge. And you have investors who have money in who invested in the banks for a return. Why are they being penalized? Because they invested in a bank. I mean, they have the option of investing in any other industry. And the point I was making was the banks which survived the cleanup, which means that those banks had been certified indirectly as being clean. Why do we have to pay the burden of the failures? And we don't see any action being taken on the failures, and we don't know what is happening. We don't know how much of the money has been recovered. We don't know how much would be recovered in the end, or is expected to be recovered over what time frame. We don't have any visibility there. And I think because it's our money as Ghanaians, we need to know. We need to know what is going on. Yeah.
That's the MD of the Bank of Africa, Ending Business, with me, Charles Ayete. Coming up next is Sports to Stay.
Since the football governing body took a decision to suspend their activities following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, President of the association, Kurt Okreku, says the impact of COVID on Ghana football is unquantifiable.
Well, COVID has impacted negatively not only on football, but on the entire world. every bit of what we call a world has been impacted negatively by COVID, let alone football. 12 months ago, we decided to respect, in quote, COVID-19 because we wanted to protect lives and we wanted to meet today as human beings and not as people who could not breathe again, so we can enjoy our football. And I think that the FA and the government of Ghana took the right decision. Today we are back enjoying our football. I beg the fact that it's not at its fullest level yet, but we are enjoying football. We continue to have platforms like this, and COVID has come to stay with us, and we need to learn how to be ourselves even in difficult times.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought football to a hiatus for about 9 months. Kurt Okreku says the FA is still struggling to recover from the impact of the dreaded virus.
Well, I cannot really quantify, but we are not fully recovered. We're still in quote struggling because COVID is still with us. You can see your face, you can't see my face properly. That tells you that COVID is still alive, and we have to be careful. But we have to find a way to live with COVID.
Football officially resumed in November 2020 after the government of the country gave the GFA the green light to organize footballing activities.
That was President of the Ghana Football Association speaking exactly 1 year after football had to be suspended in the country due to COVID-19. And he says the impact certainly has been huge on the football economy. But let's still stick on local football, where Dreams FC striker Joseph Esso is delighted to be part of the Black Star squad assembled to face South Africa and Sao Tome and Principe later this month. The former Heart of Oak forward has been speaking to Joy Sports, and my colleague found this report.
Former House of Folk star Joseph Esso has been included in a 32-man home-based squad to start preparations for Ghana's African Cup of Nations qualifying games against South Africa and Sao Tome and Principe this month. Black Stars coach C.K. Akono added Esso having been impressed with the striker's performance in the Ghana Premier League this season. Esso has led Dreams to 5 points behind league leaders Karela United with 10 goals scored after 17 games. Speaking in an interview with Joy Sports, Esso expressed his delight on joining the Black Stars.
I've been looking for this opportunity quite long now, so I was happy. I embraced it with happiness, so I'm happy being here. Sure. So far as I have Asamoah Gyan in my mind as my mentor, sure, I want to go as far as I can, like how Asamoah Gyan did.
Ghana is scheduled to take on Bafana in round 5 of the qualifiers before tackling Sao Tome and Principe in the final qualifier. The Black Stars are tied on 9 points at the top of the standings in Group C after 4 matches with 2 games left.
Well, that's how we'll be wrapping up the sports here. My name is Oreg Wampofu. You can get some more sports stories on my Joy Online /sports, or follow us on social media at Joy Sports GH on Facebook and Twitter.
Right, and that's it for the bulletin. I'm Israel. Thank you very much for watching. Up next, we have PM Express at PM, and Evans Meza is on standby with his guests. To stay tuned. Stay tuned.